Should we clap now?
I thought I was going to make the clap today. Nope. Too late. Snooze, you lose.
We're back. We are back. Yes. We were here last week.
Keep saying it and they'll believe it.
Yeah, exactly. No, it does. It's because obviously I guess we drop it, we do the patch, and then it's kind of we almost forget some of the bits we say, and then we get that kind of message where it goes, what should we have the title as? And we kind of think, what did we say?
Yeah.
What did we do?
What did we ramble on about?
What did we ramble on about?
Minutes?
So no, it's kind of nice to go away, refresh, and get the juices flowing, and go, what should we do differently?
Yeah. So before we dive into different, because we do have something different today, which is cool and exciting. Firstly, a huge unreserved thanks.
Sorry.
Well, thanks to you as well. Okay, fine. But thanks to everyone, because what we have received since we started putting the episodes up, I say we very graciously, obviously we do very little apart from talk nonsense.
We're just the faces.
I don't know about that. You maybe is a huge amount of feedback and compliments and criticism and feedback and everything.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, guys, it's far exceeded our expectations. So thank you.
Especially this early on.
Yes.
I would have gone 5 views is what we're going to get, and it's going to be parents and friends that just want to laugh at us sort of thing. But no, it's actually been, we've not hugely kind of pushed it. I wouldn't say, we've not done too much outside. We've kept it kind of quite streamlined.
Organic.
Organic's pretty good. But we've got some big plans. We've got some exciting stuff.
We really do, don't we? We're
we do.
A little bit.
We are teasing a little bit. But no, these next batch I'm quite excited about.
Yeah.
Different topics. Spicy.
So Chasing the Grail, episode 6.
Yes.
As is going to become customary, we're going to talk about what's on your wrist, Tristan.
I have to check to remind myself. Tag Heuer 2000 Professional. The CY2110. A really good 90s watch. Pretty much how I really kind of got into watches from a more professional retailer point of view. It's pretty much how we started building Mainspring was pretty much on the Tag Heuer 2000 series. But I got offered it a week or two ago. I really wanted one. And as soon as I saw it was unworn, new old stock stickers, I just had to have it. So beautiful black dial, 30mm quartz. Controversial.
Which we might touch on shortly.
But, there's a charm. I think when you can open up your watch box and see a £700 watch, and then right next to it, you can see, like a big hitting piece. One put an intrinsic value on it. Yeah, £35,000. You look at it next to it and you go, that's cool.
Yeah.
You kind of got two different ends of the spectrum there to go, I can strap that on. It's kept the time. It's caught. Brilliant. Perfect. Yeah. So, Tag Heuer 2000.
Nice backstory as well.
Yeah. It's for me, I used to have a manager that when I first got into the car industry, he wore one of these every single day, and he was the person that I learned most of what I do today off him. So I always kind of resonate. It was something he wore that kind of look at it and go, yeah, that was and he was one of the first people that kind of went. He wasn't manager, he was a leader. So it's a good kind of connection. Start a Mainspring, someone important. It's a cool piece. So that's what I've got on.
Beautiful.
What about you?
So I have on a Breitling Aviation 8, and it's the Curtis Special Edition.
I like the dials.
So it is a chronograph.
Green dial.
It is a green dial. And for those that aren't aware, Curtis is or was a maker of airplanes, an American company of airplanes. Way back in the day, they made a lot of fighter jets, and they're quite famous for the fighter jets that have the almost like sharp teeth looking comical front of the aeroplane.
Yeah.
And on the case back of this watch, it's see-through, so you can see the movement, but it has the aeroplane that's obviously very famous to that manufacturer.
It is a cool piece. I think it's one of the earlier George Kern kind of rebrand from Breitling kind of pieces. It's definitely them going into a certain piece of history, but also creating something that kind of revival. It's Yeah, I've definitely had one of those before, and they wear really nicely. Is it the BO1? Is it the?
It's the BO1.
It is a BO1. Yeah, it's good movement as well. That one.
Yeah,
really good movement. Nice.
Good. So we're going to do something a little bit different today.
We are.
And it's called statements.
Yes.
Sounds very dramatic.
It does.
So what we're going to do is we're going to read out some statements, some myths, some things that people might assume are facts. And one of us is going to say whether we strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree, and why. And then the other person will have a chance to kind of counter that.
Yes.
And hopefully then it puts a bit of opinion out there as to things that we believe in, but also myths that we might want to help dispel.
And they're hot topics. They're very polarising. You know, there's not a right answer. It's just opinion, you know, which is always kind of good.
Hopefully we won't fall out.
No, but I think that's the nice thing about it, isn't it? Someone's preference is someone else's, you know, and it's always kind of good. That's the lovely thing about the hobby. It's a nice icebreaker. You can have some really good conversations off the back of it. So
we don't need conformity. We just need what we like.
Let's hope the conversation stays nice. But it will.
So I'm going to go first.
Is this you asking me?
I'm going to put a statement to you.
Okay.
You should only buy watches with box and papers.
Strongly disagree. Yeah.
Why?
You can't wear box and papers.
I've tried, and you can't.
You can't. I think, yes, box and papers is nice, but my view is you can't wear the box and papers. You know, I think definitely in the last 10 years, box and papers have become a real... You've got to have box and papers. You've got to have box and papers. It's really important. I completely understand it. Yep. Past 10 years, I just don't think it was it was just what your watch came in you. It was a tall watch. You put it on. You know, it wasn't maybe such a statement piece. And, you know, there's a different level, it seems now, to kind of watch hobbying. And you know, people have come to it and understand the box and papers thing. But for me, my view is simple as you can't wear the box and papers, provided the price reflects it. You know, I think that's really key. And I think also provide you buying it from a trusted source. You know, there's definitely risks you have to take. You know, a lot of people will say, well, if you have box and papers, it's real. It's definitely not the case. You know, if you have box and papers, it adds credibility. You know, it's also, you have to be aware that some retailers will sometimes go out, buy a box from that particular age and year and put it with a watch that doesn't have that. So I would say strongly disagree, provided the price reflects that situation. The market's a bit nicher, you know, for maybe selling them on. But if you took that saving in the beginning, what's the harm? So yeah, that's my kind of view on it. Exit, you can't wear it, so be it.
So I would disagree with the statement, not with you, before you get worried. And the word that I would actually disagree with is only. Buy, because I think there are clearly opportunities and times where you're going to buy stuff without a box and papers if it makes sense to do so. Also, one of the things that I often talk about is if you're buying an older piece, let's say 10 years old, making it up a little bit, a warranty card, whilst it's nice to have, actually means less.
Yes.
Because it's not in warranty.
Yeah.
It adds provenance, it adds that bit of history, and it lets you see where the watch was bought, and you know, can I tie back the serial number to the card? But I would just disagree based on the fact that the statement says, would I only buy it? And the answer is no.
No, and I think definitely as well, it's adding it as well, limited edition pieces. I think it's probably a bit more of the important side of getting, you know, especially if you're paying a premium for limited edition. Trying to get the box and papers is nice. My turn for you. Old watches are unreliable.
Agree. And I say that through experience as opposed to making something up or just going with a myth. So I would agree in the fact that I think there has been such an evolution now in watch movements and technology and R&D that goes into the production of watches that older watches are more prone to coming into issues, and some of the issues can be quite expensive to rectify. So I've had experience in the past. I've not had a huge amount of vintage watches. I have had some, and I've found that when they've gone wrong, they go wrong. And it has been quite expensive to make them right again. But what I would say is now there is such a large contingent of really good watchmakers out there.
Yeah.
Whether that be with brands or independents, who can help you if something does go wrong. You do have that security of, if you buy an older watch because you love it or because it's a birth year special or whatever it might be, you're able to get it repaired. But for me, I do agree with the statement. I think older watches are more unreliable than newer watches.
Yeah, I echo the same thing. You know, I've been really fortunate. I've had watches from the 1920s Rolex, 1930s Rolex, you know, and I can think of pieces that have beaten me and beaten my watchmaker, and they are, you know, you go to that 1950s, 1960s and before, you're faced with some, you know, really difficult situations. I can think of a 1928 the unicorn that we've got, and it had a pattern-only crown, and it was just a case of the crown no longer can go on the case. It's just been worn down too much. Yeah. Manual wine, lockdown crown is just not possible anymore. It's almost replaced that very rare crown, or just accept that you're never going to be able to screw it in anymore. So I would agree with it. I think there is a really great period from 80s, 90s where you're in that real middle ground of going, you know, especially from certain brands like Rolex, is you can... They are really made differently. They're really well made. So, yeah, I do agree with you. Plus, you've also got this... I'm not for it, personally. But this 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, all original. I've never fully understood it. Like, you've got patina and loom falling off. And people be like, yeah, but it's good to have it original. I'm like, no, just... If it needs replacing, just replace it. So, yeah, I would probably say agree. They can cause you a headache, and they can get to a point where you just can't really... do anything with them from my experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know this is a topic close to your heart.
Yeah.
To polish or not to polish? I don't know if that's an agree statement, but I think you know what I mean.
To polish or not polish? I guess I'll take it as it's always good to polish a watch. I would say disagree. Not strongly disagree. Okay. I've always been pro. I like metal. I want to see as much metal on a watch. If a condition's 6 out of 10, just leave it. You know, I can, you know, we've all got aging. You know, we've all got
I like the
patina.
way you looked at me when you said that.
Yes. You know, 35. You know, we've all got aging. Yeah. So I think that for me, I don't know, I just learned to love the marks. I want to see the metal. I want to see the sharp lines. One of the big things that will really turn me off a watch, especially like a Rolex, and they're really obvious really quickly, is if I see it's been polished 2 or 3 times. And what we're noticing, especially today, is that it's almost become an expectation that when it touches a retailer, they make it look as new as possible, take off a layer of metal and sell it on. And as I've noticed that with watch collecting, we're always chasing the next one. We can have so many. We've got partners that will stop it. We move these pieces on, and as soon as they're touching a retailer, it's straight polish, done, and we're just losing the metal. So my preference is always, if it's a 6 out of 10, just leave it. 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, just leave it. Learn to love the marks, or just go and find one that's a nicer condition. Pay that extra, go get one that's a nicer condition. But if it's below a 6 out of 10, I would probably consider doing it. But I'm a very big fan of, I want metal. Yeah.
So I would agree that I disagree. There you go. That's a bit of
it's too late. You've hurt my head.
Yeah. So I disagree with the statement about polishing and the so I'm agreeing with you.
Yes, yeah.
It's because 2 things, actually. One, watches are to be worn, not to be kind of babied and left in a box and pristine, clearly within reason.
Yes.
But also, and it was actually a piece of advice that a jeweller gave to me years and years ago. I took a watch in to be polished and refinished, and he said to me, don't bother. And I was like, oh, you're turning away work. And he said, ultimately, you'll probably scratch it next week, and then the week after. And it becomes a bit of you're chasing this perfection. I mean, how often do you polish it? You know, it's not massively expensive, but it's also not cheap if you keep doing it.
Oh, it is, yeah. Put the Cape Cod down.
Does smell nice, though.
Oh, I'm not a fan of it.
No,
I can't. And I hate it when I get a watch in and I can smell it straight away. I'm like, oh, God. Oh, please, no. Yeah, no. Next up, bigger watches are better. feels like such a newbie thing to say.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
So I disagree. In fact, I'm going to say strongly disagree. And there are so many variables that go into what makes a watch better.
Yes.
I think size, if I take a step back, when people think about size of a watch, they very often talk about diameter.
Yes.
They will say, do you have anything in 44 mil? Do you have anything in 36 mil? Whatever.
Yes.
I find actually one of the most, if not the most important things about sizing a watch and is it comfortable is the lug to lug.
100%.
I've had 39 mil watches in the past. I think I had a Tudor BB Pro, 39 mil. I mean, that was the perfect Gada watch.
Good size.
It's comfortable. It's a lovely size.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm wearing now, I think, is 43 mil. Mm-hmm. I've got 45 mil.
52, 50. Lug to lug, yeah.
You kind of... So, but then I also think there's a time and a place for a large watch, typically in a sportier piece. Yeah. If you want something to be not hidden under a shirt cuff,
yes,
big is better.
Yes.
But I would say if you start going into really big dress watches, they actually lose a lot of appeal for me.
Yes.
And that is where I would quite happily have I've got a lovely 39 mil Jaeger-LeCoultre that fits under your shirt cuff. It's very subtle, it's very understated. So I strongly disagree that bigger is better. And just to add to that, I find that my tastes fluctuate all the time.
Yes.
I went through a real phase when I was younger of I wanted big watches.
Yeah.
Now, I don't really want massive, great... I do have big watches, but I also like smaller watches as well.
You can appreciate that.
Yeah, your tastes change.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I strongly disagree. I think it does seem... I've noticed sometimes it could be very much... from my experience and talking to people, it could be very a new thing. I'm new to the market. I want a Breitling Super Avenger, 48 mil, and you suddenly go, oh my God, who's wearing who here? Yeah. The watch is wearing me. Yeah. And I think you're bang on. There's so many people will say to me, oh, a Blancpain 50 fathoms is too big at 45 mil, but you're like, yeah, but the lug to lug is 50 mil. Yeah. It's 1-2 mil difference compared to a 40 mil Submariner, and sometimes there is a lot more context in sizing that isn't acknowledged. Thickness I think can make a watch feel a lot bigger.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Than anything else. I think thickness you can very easily stumble across a 19 mil Panerai because you get overzealous with the complications on it and suddenly go, how am I up at 19 mil? And you got a different dynamic going on compared to like a Super Avenger. So yeah, I think it tends to be a very big I do think I notice a lot of people maybe newer to it go, I want a big watch. And then I think as you start to get to your fourth or fifth watch, you start to go, actually, I find my sweet spot. But I think having a nice diverse collection, I'll happily wear a 34 mil and I'll happily go to a 45 mil. Yeah. So I'll have an 11 mil gap between the ones and different day, different feel. So yeah, I would strongly disagree without a doubt.
Okay. Yeah. All luxury watches are good investments.
Strongly disagree. But that's because I sit in the camp of I don't think watches are investments. Mm-hmm. And I think it's always difficult because I guess what I do as a day job from a FCA point of view, advice and investments and all stuff like that, I think, being savvy, of course, especially if you're into this hobby and you've got an addictive personality, being savvy with what you're buying, is good. But I think sometimes we get mixed up in this whole investment conversation and we should just more be having a savvy conversation. Yep. If you're someone that you look at your life and go, I've got a really addictive personality and I really get into stuff, just be a bit more savvy with things. I don't think watches are great investments. And I think people that normally will sit there and go, this has been a great investment, is basically just sitting there saying, I'm really lucky. I've lucked out here. Mm-hmm. And because I've lucked out, I'm going to say I knew what I was doing. Yep. And it's become a great investment. So, I'm very much, I sit in the camp of going, buy what you like, put some thought behind it, but put some thought behind it, but don't go into it thinking, I'm going to diversify my portfolio and have a bunch of Rolexes because this is the best thing. Because I've had customers sitting in front of me before crying over the fact that they once spent £45,000 on a Panda Daytona because they thought that it was it. That was the price, and that was the COVID pricing of the watch. Yeah, and it was. I think it dropped down to £25,000.
Yeah.
So it's very risky viewing it. No one has a crystal ball. These are intricate little things. There's not much sanity that goes into this particular hobby. I just don't. I think it's a hobby, not an investment portfolio.
So I would disagree, and I would say I disagree rather than strongly disagree, just because I think money can be made in watches, and that's not a a taboo or a secret.
No,
money can be made in watches, right? But one of the points you made resonates with me really, really strongly, and that is that if you buy something purely to make money from, it comes with a lot of risk.
Big time.
It comes with that risk, not just of something might go wrong, or something might not get a buyer, something might fall out of fashion. There are so many variables with watches that I think there are clearly going to be pieces you can pick up, like a one-of-one limited edition that is very unlikely to lose money, for instance. But if you go into buying watches to sit them in a box and they become box queens, they don't get used, you could be in for quite a nasty surprise 1, 2, 5, 10 years down the line, and there are probably smarter ways to make your money work.
There is, especially when you factor in inflation and things like that. They don't always tend to work out, but no, most definitely. Have we done them all? We got one more. Gold watches are more valuable than steel ones.
Disagree for me. So clearly this is stating the bleeding obvious. Gold is more valuable than steel. However, you need to spend more to purchase gold watches, typically.
Yeah.
And I find that there is a narrower market for people, especially nowadays, who want a gold watch. And when I say gold, I'm interpreting this as all gold rather than bicolour. So a gold watch, I think, is probably harder to get out of now than it used to be, and it's definitely harder to get out of than a, for instance, stainless steel sports watch. If I think about a Rolex Submariner, they're pretty easy to get out of.
Yeah.
If I think about gold watches, and going back to the investment thought a minute ago, I don't see them as being as valuable and easy to get out of now as steel ones.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think if we go back to kind of the Royal Oak and those early steel days, and the kind of the effect that had on the market of pricing that above gold watches, I think I've definitely noticed changes. It's swinging back a little bit ever since gold is in the news again. I'm definitely noticing gold watches are easier now to have a conversation with a potential buyer with. Whereas I think go back 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 2 years ago, there was almost this ostentatiousness with a gold watch, which I think, it's almost like it's had its day. That bicolour gold watch has almost partly had its day. But, there is some really exciting trends. The Oyster Flex, from Rolex, you get less gold, but actually it's a nice trade-off with the strap you're getting. So, I would probably agree it's something's worth what someone's willing to pay. And if the market dictates that, Submariner steel is worth similar-ish money right now to a bicolour one, that's just what the market's dictating them. So, without a doubt.
I'm going to throw a bonus one at you. And it's because I'm sat here wearing an automatic watch and you're sat there wearing a quartz watch. So quartz watches are not as good as automatic watches.
Agree.
Interesting.
Yeah, agree. Why? Yeah, agree. Just the complexity, the appreciation. You've got 200 moving parts, keeping to the tune of 86,400 seconds to a day. There has to be a level of appreciation for an automatic watch.
Absolutely.
And for what it goes through. Yeah, I think I own an Apple Watch. I
didn't know that.
Please don't judge me.
Too late, sorry.
I have an Apple Watch. I appreciate a quartz watch, but I think if I can think of a watch of higher value, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, I'm struggling to think of quartz pieces. I really am struggling to think of quartz pieces. So, yeah, I think I agree automatic is better than quartz, but it doesn't mean to say you should completely, not appreciate quartz watches. They are still, there's some cool bits out there, definitely.
I would also agree, and I'm actually someone who has no quartz watches in my collection, so it's mainly automatics with a handful of manual wind watches.
Yeah.
The one thing I do think is, or in fact 2 points, is one is you get quartz,
yes,
and then you get quartz. So if I think of like a Grand Seiko quartz movement,
they're pretty cool.
It is entirely different to what you'd get in a cheaper kind of watch you might pick up for a couple of £100.
Yes,
it's highly engineered.
Oh yeah,
very accurate. Also beautiful as
yes.
well. And the other thing would be, one thing I actually miss in my collection, now that I don't have a quartz watch, is a grab and go.
Yes.
So the ability to just pick something up, stick it on the wrist and go. The amount of times I get in the car or get on the train and go, I haven't set my watch. I then have to sit there winding it up, setting the time.
Yeah.
You miss that bit of get and go.
I think you do. And I don't know, with quartz watches, I think because of maybe the intrinsic value and the value of them, they're also nicer maybe to strap on and not worry so much about. But at the same time, as you said, there's been some amount. I mean, I've had a couple of the Rolex Oyster Quartz, and they're really, they're cool watches. Don't get me wrong, they're starting to go wrong, and parts are starting to get really hard to get hold of.
That's interesting.
But they are still great watches. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So without a doubt.
Okay, so we have now finished the list. We're going to go on to questions, and this is something
you're so excited.
I am so excited about this.
I love it.
We have had a series of 3 questions that have come in from the same family, all based up in Glasgow.
Yes.
They've asked to remain anonymous. They know who they are, so thank you for sending these in. They're not allowed to
husband,
to have names.
wife, and their 10-year-old son.
I know. So I'm going to ask these questions, but we're both going to answer them if that's okay with you.
Okay.
I was told I needed to do an accent for the husband and wife, but I can't do a
Please
Scottish accent.
Please don't. We will be cancelled.
So, from the husband, how can watch podcasters and horology journalists maintain objectivity when they're so often tied closely to brands? And a second kind of explainer for that I didn't know, especially with recent developments like Hodinkey's acquisition by Watches of Switzerland.
That's a very layered question. Answer. I think, it's very layered. I think my first thing is everyone's got to eat. That's on my straight go-to. I think,
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, everyone's got to eat. And I think some of the ones that do it as a full-time job, the content they produce is amazing. Mm-hmm. You can tell they put a lot of effort into their content, and yes, they do get hate, and it's very easy to say that they're biased, and they clearly have a certain view that they go down. But I think I think the ones that obviously are making careers out of it, it's for the viewer to make a decision on what they want to take away from that situation and that particular viewpoint and that particular person. The more money involved, of course, naturally, it becomes harder. It's for many of them, and many of the really good ones, it is their job, it's their career. They've got to find a way to survive. And at the same time, you're in a world where you do have to, what you say has consequences. So there is a level of, if you still want that person and these people and these companies to build up like Hodinkey, you have to understand that they have to do certain things that maybe not to everyone's liking. They have to produce content, and they might be getting money off the back of it, and the content could be swayed a certain way. But everyone's got to eat, and it's for you to decide, I would say, as a viewer, as to what information you choose to believe and not. But influencers have been there for forever. They're never going to go away. Most of what we do in life is influenced in some way. So I think, my view is the ones that are really good, you almost have to expect that they're going to do it, and it's up to them what level of authenticity or what they want to show, if that makes sense. But as a viewer, you can make a decision on it. That would be me.
So I would just build on that slightly, and I would say something we are really keen to ensure is that we're providing our own, without bias, opinions. I think there is a difference between content creation where you actively attempt to be unbiased versus where you are paid to give an opinion.
Yes.
That is something that I know I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable doing, is a brand pays you to say something. And I think that's where it tips into...
It's complicated.
It's a complicated area, right?
But I'd say we're fortunate. I would say we're fortunate in that, I guess for us, we're really fortunate with maybe revenue streams that we have. You know, I guess for those that want to maybe make it big, they are going to have to do certain deals that are going to question the authenticity. And I guess for us, we're in a very fortunate place in that we're doing it because we're enjoying it and because our wives are sick to death of us.
Get out of the house, talk about watches with someone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's basically it, from my perspective anyway. Yeah. But I think as long as we can kind of keep that going, I think it's important to us. You know, so definitely, from our point of view, it seems to be.
So talking about wives, do you want to ask me actually this question?
So she's called Wife. Is watch collecting fundamentally masculine in a way that actively excludes women, and does the industry even want to fix that?
So it's an incredible question, and I love this question.
It's deep.
It is deep, and it's layered. So I'm going to give a bit of a layered answer to this.
And it's hard to answer, isn't it, from our perspective?
It's hard to give the right answer. But
I don't think there is one, but yeah.
I'm going to give my without bias opinion. Do I think the watch industry is skewed more towards men? Yes. I think that is potentially quite a deliberate thing, but that is mainly because I think more men collect watches. Therefore, larger brands are probably going to go after revenue streams where there is more of a market to go after, if that's not too much word soup. Watch collecting, I'm a member of a number of different watch groups, and there are ladies in those groups. They're very active. They have fantastic collections.
Yeah.
It is majority men. Mm-hmm. And that is not through any policy or any exclusionary tactics. That is just people gravitate towards a hobby, a collection, a thing to do. I do see that there is a pull more towards the industry wanting more women as role models. So I think of some of the brands now using, like Jennifer Lawrence, using Serena Williams as their role models, their figureheads. And that is probably a way that the industry as a whole is making more deliberate steps to deliver greater equality in what they're doing. But the answer for me is probably that I do see watches at the moment, the industry and the collecting circles I'm in, being more dominated by male figures.
Mm. Yeah, there's a very fine line between, isn't it, with the question. I think there's certain words in the question. I don't know. I do think there is a real, I definitely notice it, a real push towards ladies' pieces and an acceptance of saying, you know, you don't have to have a 26 or a 28 or a 31 mil. It is a deep sea 44 mil on a lady's wrist. It looks absolutely awesome. And I think I notice there is more an inclusive, from my perspective, that it's releases, the marketing, the material. I think it seems well balanced. But then again, I don't know. That's just the way I'm seeing it. 21st century, I think you do have to really think about that type of thing. And I think it's quite inclusive. I don't know if maybe just the wording for me, the fundamentally and the actively excludes women. I don't think it does. Okay. I think they're very good. It's very nicely balanced. Is there maybe more men in industry that are more into the hobby? Yes. But I think it's changing. Like loads of things are changing. It's becoming a lot more balanced, and that does make it a lot more exciting. So yeah, I somewhat agree, but not the kind of the strongness of the question. But it is a good question though. But it's definitely.
And then the third part, and I've been told I have to somewhat read this in the accent of a 10-year-old, which I do have a nearly 9-year-old of my own, so it shouldn't be that difficult. And this is verbatim wording from this family's 10-year-old son. Why do watches even exist still? My phone tells me the time straight away, and it doesn't need to be wound up. So are people who spend hundreds on watches, and that's generous because obviously a lot of us spend a lot more than hundreds, but anyway, and I like this bit, just flexing, bro. Stop pretending watches are deep. I think that's a statement rather than a question, that last bit. So why do watches exist still, Tristan, when we got phones?
It doesn't really make any sense, but I think that's the beauty of it. I think there's not many things that... they're more like engines, aren't they, than they are anything else. Actually, you've got something that's got 250 parts in, keeping to the tune of 86,400 seconds. As I said earlier, there's, we've got so much technology, and I think he answers the question in it to go, his phone, there's so many modern things, and there's such a beauty. You can look at your wrist and go, something so old and so mechanical, still so appreciated to this day. I don't think we should ever personally lose that. And I think there's multiple reasons. You're not going to have a conversation, break the ice with someone over your iPhone, are you? Yeah. For me personally, what I've done is I've had some amazing conversations with people off the back of what watches I've worn. So, for me, I wear it for multiple different reasons. I'm proud of what I've done and what I've achieved. I look down at the wrist and I go, hell yeah, I've done well. I've earned that. At the same time, it's been fantastic to break the ice with. You've broken it. Jordan is rushing over as we speak to fix it.
We'll style it out, don't worry.
Yes, we'll style it out. So, no, I think, yes, the logical answer is your phone keeps better time. Of course it does. Yeah. But I think you're missing the point of watches. But at the same time, I think it's really good that there's even 10-year-olds out there having conversations about watches. My son, 6, he's got 4. He's proud of his watch box.
Yep.
He puts on his baby G-Shock for school.
Yep.
He's proud that he wears it to swimming.
Yep.
For me, there's not many things in today's society with the technology and the AI and everything that's around us that is so dated and unchanged and still being tweaked and adapted to this day. Yeah. And is so widely appreciated.
So I would just build on that. That was very heartfelt.
Thank you.
I would just build on that slightly by saying, I think actually, I'm going to answer the question slightly differently. I don't think many of us wear watches to necessarily tell the time. No. I think they mean more. They are different. It's almost, I am married, but I don't wear a wedding ring. I don't particularly wear other jewellery. For me, it's a bit of that being able to wear something that you feel special wearing, that you're able to enjoy, that others are able to enjoy.
Yes.
To be honest, do I check the time that much? Probably not. I've got a computer, I've got a phone.
Yeah, I still check my phone.
Right.
Yes.
But I think there is something to be said about having a watch. You can tell the time on it if you so desire, but it's more than just a time vessel.
There's so much more depth to it.
There is,
and it's different to everybody. It's you don't need to, for a certain reason. It's there's far more to it. I've met loads of people who've said I've worn a watch because I came from nothing and I look down my wrist. I have a Rolex and I now have something. There's different strokes for different folks, right? Without a doubt.
Very good. So thank you to the family from Glasgow that won't be named.
They were good questions. I'm going to say, controversially, they were our best questions so far.
I think so.
Yeah, I like them.
Will we leave it there?
Yes, we should. We'll see you next. We'll come back next week for our next one.
Back in 10 minutes' time. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. How long was that?
42 minutes.
Good luck editing that. I saw you were like...